Imagine if you loved someone so deeply that you were willing to change reality itself just to make them love you back. That is exactly the core idea of the film Obsession, a psychological horror story that slowly turns a simple romantic desire into a disturbing nightmare. The story follows a young man named Bear, who is completely obsessed with his coworker Nikki. From the outside, Bear seems like a quiet and slightly awkward guy, but inside his mind, Nikki is everything to him. He thinks about her all the time, watches her social media, and builds an entire fantasy in his head where she is the perfect girl for him. But the truth is, he never has the courage to actually confess his feelings. Instead, he lives in silence, letting his obsession grow stronger every day. One day, Bear comes across a mysterious object called the One Wish Willow. It is a supernatural item that claims to grant one wish, but there is a warning attached to it. Every wish comes with unpredictable consequences, and it can completely change reality in ways you cannot control. Despite this warning, Bear's emotional desperation pushes him to make a dangerous wish. He wishes that Nikki would love him more than anyone else in the world. The moment he makes the wish, everything changes. At first, it feels like a dream come true. Nikki suddenly becomes extremely attached to him. She wants to be around him all the time, cannot function without him, behaves like she is completely in love with him. For Bear, this feels like victory. The girl he always wanted is finally his, but very quickly he realizes something is terribly wrong. Nikki's love is not natural. It is forced. It is not based on real emotion or choice. It is as if her mind has been overwritten. Sometimes she briefly breaks out of this strange state and shows signs of her real self. In those moments, she appears confused, scared, and even asks for help. It becomes clear that the real Nikki is still inside her body, but she is trapped, unable to control her own actions. However, Bear refuses to accept the truth. Even when he sees Nikki suffering, even when she begs in broken moments for release, he continues to hold on to the fantasy. To him, losing her love would mean losing everything he ever wanted. This is where his character begins to change. He slowly transforms from a lonely romantic into someone selfish and morally blind, because he prioritizes his desire over another person's freedom. As the story continues, Nikki's behavior becomes more unstable and disturbing. She switches between extreme affection and emotional breakdowns. Sometimes she's loving and clingy, and other times she becomes violent or mentally detached. The relationship between Bear and Nikki becomes less like a romance and more like a psychological prison. Bear is trapped in his obsession, and Nikki is trapped in a forced emotional state she cannot escape. Eventually, Bear learns more about the One Wish Willow and realizes that the wish has overridden Nikki's free will. The real Nikki still exists somewhere inside, but she is suppressed by this unnatural version of love. There are moments where she clearly cries for help, asking to be freed, but Bear's emotional dependency prevents him from acting responsibly. He knows something is wrong, but he is too afraid to lose the relationship he always dreamed of. The horror in the film is not just supernatural, it is psychological. It shows how love can turn into control, and how desire can destroy morality. Bear becomes less of a hero and more of a villain because he continues to choose his fantasy over Nikki's suffering. Nikki, on the other hand, becomes a tragic victim, a person who has lost control over her own identity. As things escalate further, violence and chaos enter their lives. The boundaries between reality and obsession completely break down. Relationships collapse, trust disappears, and everything spirals into emotional and physical destruction. Bear finally begins to understand that the wish he made was not love at all, it was possession. In the final moments, everything reaches a breaking point. Bear realizes that his obsession has destroyed not only Nikki, but also the people around them and himself. Nikki eventually returns to her real self, but she is left traumatized by everything that has happened while she was trapped inside her own body. Bear's story ends in tragedy, showing that there is no happy ending when love is built on control instead of freedom. The deeper meaning of obsession is that true love requires consent, freedom, and mutual feeling. When love becomes something forced or controlled, it stops being love and becomes a psychological prison. The film also reflects modern relationship issues such as emotional dependency, jealousy, and social media-driven obsession. In the end, Obsession is not just a horror movie. It is a disturbing reflection of human desire and the dangers of wanting someone too much. It shows that sometimes getting exactly what you wish for can become the worst outcome imaginable, because real love cannot be created by force. It can only exist freely.